it's basically they make up a part of the communities.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of women are interested in the fire service, and they should have every opportunity as anybody else.
Indeed.
Whether we dealt with it as black firefighters coming in, they dealt with it as black women coming in, and now what's happening today is we're reverting back due to changes in policies and hiring, changes to, I would say, CPAT, and incorporating that in departments to be hired, and giving people time to be prepared for these examinations is another thing that we're working to make sure everybody had the opportunity for.
You know, that's absolutely correct in terms of the barriers that are sometimes erected. So I hear you saying, although there might have been an increase, a trajectory of more women in the fire service, you mentioned going back that there's now more of an opposition to that occurring?
Well, yeah, and not just women. The numbers are going down with African Americans as a whole, and the women in most of these departments never reached a plateau. You know, they never got to the numbers where just the African Americans had gotten to, in reference to if you wanted your departments to look like your community. Yeah, the challenge is still there, and we got to do everything we can on our side of the spectrum to address it.
Excellent. And again, the purpose of this show is for folks to see how you guys are not just relaxing and on the beach, et cetera, but really kind of working and being on the alert and ready to kind of respond to the alarm 24/7, 365. Gary, in terms of the women's situation, would you like to share any comments in that regard?
Yeah, I just first and foremost thank you for having us on the show. And how you doing, President Stewart?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. As far as women in the fire service, I feel, and so many of us feel, that they bring so much to the table. And I can't tell you how many times that I've gone on calls and just looked over my shoulders hoping that I'd see a female firefighter there to just help me with the situation. They bring a lot to the table. They bring empathy, professionalism, compassion, and it's just it's something that the fire service should embrace. And you know, and then as far as inclusion, and what I'm seeing, not just in the past but recently, has reared its ugly head again, is the issues that women face once they are hired on a department. That's one thing, but once they go into the training schools, and once we see the psychological, physical, mental torture, and that's what I call it, what they're going through, to weed them out, and that's unfortunate, and that's something that I can't, you know, when I go to sleep at night, it doesn't sit well with me. So in that aspect, we have to really pay attention to, not just locally but nationally, what our female firefighters are going through.
So there's that, if you will, Gary, I don't want to put words in your mouth, the hostility in the workplace.
Exactly.
And Addington, do you concur with that?
No doubt about it. And if we're talking specific issues of where women are being challenged in these departments, of course that's occurring, and it's occurring in other areas of the organizations throughout the country. Some are better than others. Some are working better than others. But it is a fact that it's still there. And just as in fire departments, they're microcosms of our communities and of our larger cities. And so, yes, we are dealing with it, and it's a fight and it's a struggle. And it's similar to what we went through and are still going through, and these psychological things are being, I guess, in this era of Trump, is rearing its ugly head even more.
You know, and so we talked about diversity as being one of the themes for today, and so it seems to me that you're chatting about that as well. And I put on my, guess as a point, Gary, you might have seen this in Addington. We've just become Facebook friends, but I put on my Facebook page maybe two months ago that if I hear the word diversity and inclusion one more time, I'm going to throw up. But it seems to me that sometimes you have to work with what you have. You got to improve it, and if you don't start somewhere and just continue to apply sustained pressure, you're not going to kind of eliminate the wound. So talk to me about diversity as well as about why that's important for both of you guys in terms of the overall framework and mission of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters.
Well, again, I think I stated it earlier. We should look like our communities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's asking for too much.
Mm-hmm.
In just a simple term, why not? In just a simple term, why are we still dealing with issues that we so-called had dealt with before?
Yes.
And they're rearing their head again. It's due to the fact, in my opinion, that we've gotten comfortable as people, and then the others are getting comfortable in their situation of let's make America great. And I agree with let's make America great in the terms that we need to stop not addressing the issue of race and the systemic racism that's causing this. And I think until we get there, we don't address any of the things that we're trying to talk about in reference to diversity. And the statement now, diversity is like a buzzword, like affirmative action was, and you can't say it anymore. You can't do it anymore. And they're turning diversity into that same thing. But diversity is really let's look at everybody and give everybody an equal chance. And I think those communities and departments should be reflective of that. And
Gary, would like to share anything in there?
Yeah, again, I mean, when you talk about diversity, inclusion, I mean, I remember, I think, back in 2004, we had one of our mottos was diversity is a matter of national security. And, you know, we ran with that, and it's rearing its ugly head today because, I mean, when we fight, continuously fight every day to impact the fire service, employing people of color and gender, we run into that brick wall again. If we get them in the door, then they keep changing the rules. We get them in the training school, they change the rules. We get them in the firehouse, they change the rules. The qualifications keep moving the goalposts. So every time we strategize to get something to make the fire service a better service and more inclusive, the rules change. And you know, and that's something that we have to continuously monitor and keep fighting.
You know, Addington, the New Haven Registers are one of our newspapers here in New Haven, and the New Haven Independent, who's really the father and mother of this radio station, also is a very vibrant media source. But the New Haven Register, the print version, had an article. They've done a series of things about the 50 more noteworthy things that have happened in New Haven over the last 200 or so years. And the Supreme Court case, the Ricci case, was kind of referenced in an article. I think I might have tagged you on it. Are there any executive orders pending or lawsuits pending or class actions pending in the legal realm that the International Association is involved with?
Well, we're taking on addressing those that are brought forward. That goes to the issue of the climate in some of the departments in the fire service. And what do I mean by that? Well, there are issues occurring, and they get dealt with in-house in most instances due to intimidation, something that Gary just spoke to. And when he mentioned that diversity is a matter of national security, that was instituted during the Ricci case. Is where we brought all of that out to address those things and testing. And so all of these things are happening to us, and these barriers are steadily being built up against us as we try to move forward. You take one step forward, then you got to take two steps back because of the changes in our climate. If we start looking at and when I say our climate today, we start chasing everything that's going on in the Justice Department and get rid of all of the rhetoric around the current president, you'll see they're making unprecedented changes back to things that we fought for back in the 70s. And so that's what I feel we're up against, and how do we combat it is the key, and that's sitting down with all of the individual leaders and chapter leaders across the country and start developing plans to address them.
And so that
it's not going to go away. And I think Coretta Scott King said, "You have to fight for your freedom in every generation."
Indeed.
So it's that time again, and we can't sit and watch these controversial issues come up in the fire service and not get the soldiers there to address them.
Indeed. So, Gary and Addington, help me if you would. If people want more information, of course, about the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters, they can go to your Facebook page and your website. But for our general listener that wants to kind of contribute or volunteer or be of help or provide assistance, what can they do specifically? Can they should they go to their city hall or go to a civil service meeting or speak to the alder person or write a petition? What would you advise for the general person? Because your army doesn't have to be people that are just part of that have been baptized into the fire service, but the normal citizens, in my opinion, the normal Joe Blow, John Blow, myself can kind of we have a role to play as well. If you could elaborate on that, perhaps.
Yeah, I think all of the above, and we can work to with the urban leagues, the NAACPs, where they're viable in the different cities across the country.
Mm-hmm.
We can also work with pastors groups and clergy groups that are viable in your particular area, just depending on the area. You have some local council members or alder people across the country that are more progressive and more supportive of our groups as others politically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say do all of the same, but for the individual, reach out to support them, get involved in it, be a part of their voice when you see them speak out against some of the issues. And hopefully we can address what's really one of our bigger problems is jobs and hiring people that look like us and giving some of those other second chances that haven't had opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say everything you mentioned, but
you
know,
just
just
say
take
that to
a
be nice to me,
personal
Addington.
look at this, and whether it's the fire service or any other persons that might be hiring young African Americans, try to work with those groups to get those things done.
Right, and I appreciate your sharing that. And Gary and Addington, I noticed on the Facebook page, I believe you have one of the headline kind of graphics is about retention. There's how to get involved, regardless of wherever you are in the United States. From a recruitment standpoint, would you like to elaborate upon that?
Yeah, I mean, you can go on our Facebook page. You can go directly to our website. We got a guest area. You can make a post, and people can get back to you directly via the website. And that's one of the easier ways to do it.
And Gary, we spoke last time you were here about the pub. I shouldn't say yours. I mean, other people were involved. Nothing can happen from a community development standpoint without collaboration and teamwork. But the Public Safety Academy. Maybe talk about that. And Addington, perhaps share if you see that kind of phenomenon growing in other cities as well in terms of the early. What I like to call perhaps the minor league recruitment or the AAU recruitment for the fire services. But the Public Service Academy here in New Haven has been really tremendous from my standpoint, just watching as a citizen. And you had the recent new recruits ceremony at one of our local high schools, Career High School, and I think you could see how you planting the seeds and how the seeds have borne fruit. But Gary, perhaps share a little bit about the Public Service Academy and Addington, maybe address if you think that might be a model that could be replicated elsewhere.
Well, unfortunately, Tom, these are they're programs that are not just locally but nationally, which we mimicked here. I was able to go to Cleveland and a couple other cities and see what they were doing in the high schools. But I mean, it seems that it's a no-brainer if you expose our youth and give them these certifications that it takes to get on these departments at an early age, and you introduce them to these different career paths, it makes a big difference in lives. Because especially here in New Haven, we used to have the factories, the Winchesters, Olin. A lot of those places are gone. So the new factories, as far as I'm concerned, are these public safety jobs, these fire and police, which many folks fare well. But so we have to train them, get them prepared, so that we don't hear that the statement that I hear all the time. We want qualified applicants. Okay, if you want qualified applicants, you pick them right out of the high schools in your city. They have the certifications, they have the training,
good point.
So there's no excuse.
They're ready, yes.
And then the majority of them are going to live in your city.
Yes.
And so that money stays there. So then you talk about the financial impact on it.
Good point. Yeah, so taxpayers, et cetera.
Et cetera. So it's a no-brainer. Then you look at the penal system and what's happening in incarceration. You talk about second chances. Let me really see you give someone second chances. And I'm not seeing that, especially in the fire service, because a lot of folks are being eliminated because of things that happened 15 years ago. But other folks can take advantage of it, but certain folks can't.
Yes.
So,
and Addington, Gary referenced the Public Service Academy and how he was able to kind of see it in operation in other cities. With your being president and kind of having that macro overview, any other cities that you'd like to give a shout out to and maybe delineate some of the activities that they're involved with? I noticed, I think it was in Chicago that you had your mentorship program, and I know you had the museum out on the West Coast. I forget the city in California. But any other cities that you'd like to give a shout out to, and any other of your branches in terms of what they're doing?
Several cities have these programs where they're collaborated with the fire service and high schools. They call the one here in St. Louis the A+ program that was started under former Chief Sherman George here in St. Louis when I worked on his staff. And those work well. We also need to have training facilities just like they're starting here in St. Louis with the police department. They're actually paying people. It's a program. It's in Polk County, Florida, where they're going to be making a presentation in Atlantic City about the program that they're doing, and they're paying young people while they train them.
Tremendous.
To become firefighters. So some things like that need to occur. But again, those take dollars, and those things are happening in several cities. So when we say L.A. County, when we say Oakland area, I can go to Texas and Dallas. We can go all across where these programs are being initiated. But, Tom, I'm going to say this. When I came on the job in 1978, I had a high school diploma. I was just graduated, so I had a high school diploma. I had to have a valid driver's license, and we took a physical exam to show that we could do pull-ups, push-ups. And the majority of us that came on during that time fared well as firefighters throughout their careers. That was all it took. And so now they're requiring people to have EMT certifications. They're requiring people to your courses, paramedics, when they can actually train you when you get there. That we can go into this testing thing and talk all day about how they're utilizing tests. Of course, they have to limit the number of thousands upon thousands of people apply, and you only got 100 jobs. So, of course, you got to eliminate somebody. But it's how they're doing it and why they're doing it and changing all of these things. It limits African Americans from getting in. We are working to train them. We have a program called the IBPFFrecruit.com.
Yes.
It's been up and running, going on its third year. So we ought to start seeing some fruits from that first year group that started. And so we're trying to get people to sign up and start tracking them so we can say, okay, we do have some young people here who have certifications, or whether it's EMT, paramedic, firefighter 1 and 2, or fire science degrees related to the fire service. So we're doing those things. It just takes time, and then we're partnering and collaborating with fire departments. We're partnering, collaborating with community colleges. We're partnering, collaborating with anybody that wants to put some money into supporting programs to help get our young people one at a time off the streets.
I like that very much. Just as you were talking, Addington, so talk to me about next month, August, because it seems to me with all the we've been talking for the first 26 or so minutes, in my mind, in a way, about tactics and strategies and initiatives and reporting and not, if not infiltrating, but being at the table. And if you don't have a chair, kind of bring your own chair and bring your own table for that matter. But the upcoming your international conference. A convention next month in Atlantic City. Talk to me about why that's important to kind of bring people together, and how it's not just a chance to kind of work on your tan, but it's a chance to kind of really just work on sharpening our skill set and our initiatives and our purpose.
Well, it's to develop strategies and plans to address all of the issues we're talking about. Some people have programs in place that in one side of the country that on the other side of the country, members might not even know it exists.
Good.
and that's within our system.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you get to share those types of things at the this particular meeting. We're also addressing constitutional change and business aspects of our organization too. But we also get to discuss those very things, whether it's the women in fire service, whether it's testing issues, whether it's filing lawsuits based on harassment and discrimination. The whole gambit is we probably got 3 weeks worth of stuff we're trying to put into 4 days approximately.
Indeed.
To address and try to help our communities and our organization be better prepared to deal with everything we're talking about. I mean,
and as you know, I'll be there
short version of what we're trying to do. Specifically, what I like to come out of this meeting with is people actually develop the plans, as many as we can while we're there, because life is happening once you leave.
That's right.
And so to keep people on track and to keep them engaged is another challenge when we're talking about across the country, over 3,000 members, and trying to keep them all. Of course, 3,000 members aren't going to be in Atlantic City either. So, that's the other aspect. We got to get the word out and packaged up to where the members can follow where we're trying to go.
Indeed. And as you know, I look forward to being there for a few days, and I'll be sure to watch Gary and make sure he's being productive also. So you have my commitment to do.
Well, I'm gonna say Gary is an all-out fighter. Sometimes we got to hold him, but he's a fighter just like a lot of others in the fire service that have been before me, and some that are coming up. You can see the light bulb is turning on because these issues are directly impacting them or the chapters they're leading, and so you're starting to see it, and just through the Me Too movements and I mean, the incident in Chicago that highlighted stuff here in St. Louis when the Mike Brown issue occurred, that people started looking at all of these things, but they still left the fire service out. And the fire service is worse than most police departments. So we got a lot of work to do. We just need the exposure and the support and the dollars to get it done.
Well, and that's why I was so glad, Gary and Addison, for us to have a chance to chat, because just as you say, there's so many issues that we try to we address and we're bombarded with. But when we think about police, we always know. But yeah, you're right. The fire service is just not. We remember you guys when we need you when the crucial fires start. But in terms of your system and your organizational structure and just being a democratic institution, it is forgotten. We're blessed here in New Haven to have, as you know, our Chief John Alston, and John was head of our recent he was for the Freddie Fixer Parade. He was one of the parade guys and parade chairman. Addison, what kind of as an aside, you mentioned 30 years in high school, right out of high school, getting involved. But what was the attraction to you? I mean, that you stuck around for a while.
Well, Tom, it's going to be just as simple as it gets. I needed a job and some money.
Well, that's good. That's good. But sometimes people want job and money and find that it's that plantation not the right plantation for them. So I mean, you stuck it out in this particular situation for as I believe you said for 30 years.
I did 34 years.
34
but what
years.
I didn't know, Tom, is what I didn't know I was going to find when I took this job. I found a career. And I found a career that was rewarding to me and my family, where I raised 5 adult children, and I'm supporting still some grandchildren through that. And I would say what's missing is that aspect of it, because at the end of the career, a lot of these departments have great pension systems, which that's another issue we're dealing with, because a lot of those are under attack too. But they got great pension systems, and for the last 5 years, I've been living off of it, and I'm living well. I'm not rich, but I'm living well, and I'm able to do things that you could have never imagined that you could do after doing 35 years and getting out when you're 50-something years old, and still can enjoy your life. And it's funny you said plantation, because we called ourselves getting off the plantation after those 35 years.
Excellent. Gary, do you like to add to that now that you're, as you know, Addington, I had a chance to take some pictures of Gary's retirement party, but I think he's just as active now, if not more active than he was then. So, Gary, kind of fill us in with what's kind of keeping you busy now that you're quote unquote retired.
Well, again, busy. Busy and definitely reaching out to the schools that I've worked with over the years, and really want to get back to engaging our youth and putting 100% of my efforts behind that and behind the IABPFF and our mission and goals. I just want folks to understand that our organization we're in the trenches of our communities across this country.
This is the thing that's really attracted me. Yes,
right.
Yes.
And folks don't really realize how passionate and how we are a family that care about our community, care about our the cities, and we're here to help, and we need help from everyone. We want you to help us. And,
indeed.
And that's where we are. And again, when I say passionate, when we go to these meetings and the conferences, it's going to a family reunion, because you hear your horror stories, you can identify what's happening locally, but then when you sit down in a room and you hear these other horror stories, you know you're not alone.
Not alone.
And people know that these things are happening, and they just don't turn a deaf ear to when people talk about what's happening.
And I appreciate you saying that. And I noticed Addington and Gary also at the convention, there's a memorial service. I want to lift that up because this is a protective service, and you're putting your life on the line. So I think people marched in, and there was a memorial service. That kind of just really struck me. Addington, you'd like to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, it's where we recognize those that have gone on before us, and we address and title the most recent losses, whether they're retired or active, and we pronounce and hail their names, every last one of them that we got information on that is passed within the past year, and it gives us a time to recognize and seek and get prayer for us to protect those that are still working. So it's a solemn occasion, but it is a vital one that lets us know that, one, we're with these members, and that we're still keeping those members and their families in our hearts.
Indeed. Yeah, that's what really touched me. Let's jump, if we could, gentlemen, to community service. We've alluded to it a little bit, but again, it's another aspect of the departments are not always as recognized from the general population as being a true service. I mean, we know you're a true service when that bell goes off or when you pull the fire alarm. But in terms of the hostility, sometimes you have to encounter, in terms of the workload, in terms of the tests changing and the hierarchies changing and the politics of the institution. But in spite of that, regardless, you're still very much involved with community service. Could you share a few?
Yes, and again, according to what Gary was just speaking to in New Haven, and what you spoke to with the Freddie Fix Parade, we have an Annie Malone Parade here in St. Louis. I'm sure there are other names and titles. You've got the Juneteenth parades, and with all of those things, we involve ourselves in them to, one, just take the message of fire safety first, and once we take the message of fire safety, then we can bring the message of hey, are you interested in the fire service? And so those are some of the very things that we're still doing, and we support other organizations, whether it's with Thanksgiving Day meals, or whether it's back to school backpack type presentations prior to the school year starting. So we've involved ourselves in quite a few things, and some of us support when firefighters die in the line of duty. Some of our organizations are involved in supporting and getting money to support those families. So, yes, it's a myriad of things that we do in the community, and Gary can speak to some of those specifically up there in New Haven and in the Northeast region where he's at, where our chapters are involved, and with clergy sometimes, with AKAs and deltas. We try to just put our
key.
Small footprint into some of those larger groups events also.
That's right. And so, Gary, you have, as Addington was speaking, the scholarship dinner.
Right. We do, every year we have a scholarship, George Sweeney Scholarship Award.
To George Sweeney. And who's George Sweeney?
He's he's the gentleman that's the shoulders we stand on. He's one of our elders who passed a couple of years ago that I love and respect and sacrifice so much for us, and that's what I don't want our young folks to lose, is that we stand on the shoulders of our elders, and that people don't think for 1 second that we made it on our own, because it's not even close to the truth. If these folks didn't do what they did and take a stand and fight the good fight, we wouldn't have these pensions or these retirements or these careers and able to take care of our families the way we do. So, again, I thank God and thank our elders for doing the hard work that they've done over the years.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Addington, you're still hanging in with us? So we got about another 5 or so minutes. Or you're still good?
Yes, sir. I'm good.
You don't have to take your Flomax or your Viagra pill or whatever. I know. I'm just saying, Addington. Just us guys. Only 10 million people are listening.
Comment.
But I'll put your business on blast. But I mean, things. That's the way it goes.
Wow, Tom.
I know you never know what's going to come out of my mouth. Neither do I until I say it. Which is why, as a sidebar, I was one of our West Haven beaches yesterday, Addington, and a gentleman in literally the proverbial pickup truck yells out the N-word to me. It was kind of an isolated part of the beach, but it just reminded me of how tenuous things are in this world that we're in. So. I don't know, Gary. I'm in a kind of a different kind of mood this morning. For the convention, is there still time for people to get involved? So we can just share a few words about that for them to kind of come down. Is registration still open or on-site registration?
Yeah, it's on-site registration only. Just started today, and people still can sign up if you go to our website, iabpf.org. Right on our front page, you can access any part of the convention that you want to be involved in, along with signing up as a guest, or if we got some members who still haven't registered for the meeting. Yes, we're open.
And that's so key, as you say, to kind of come together and have a workshop, but also a relaxed environment, but also to kind of be able to work and strategize and kind of plan for the future. 30 Addington and Gary, we hadn't rehearsed this question, but 30 years from now, do you hope that will there still be a need for the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters? And 3 decades from now,
I think so. Its need is based on, I think, the same premise as a Congressional Black Caucus, or in our city we have an aldermanic council that exists to just address the issues that are impacting African Americans. And I think that's basically what we're doing and trying to address the issues that not only impact our members, but address those issues that are impacting our communities when we're talking about fire deaths and taking steps to address diabetes and high blood pressure and those other things that are still impacting our communities. I don't believe they'll go away, but I think we can continue to do things to make things better. And if they do go away at some point, maybe we'll be more on the advocacy side of things, and this whole fight to address discrimination, whenever that's going to be gone, you can go figure on that just based on what happened to you the other day. But until we can get all of those things out of the way, it's always for a good, positive group to exist.
Absolutely. Gary?
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what the president said, I just, again, the work that we do as far as you talk about community risk reduction, which is something that's really key to what we do across the country. I mean, because you have a lot of departments that don't really go into the depths of the communities and promote fire safety and community risk reduction. Our organization does that. We have programs that we've set up, and we've distributed ladders, escape ladders, smoke detectors, and I've always locally and nationally advocated for those type of things. But when you talk about community risk reduction, you're not just talking about fire prevention. You're talking about everything. Hiring diverse communities. You have language barriers. So if you hire folks that have,
good point.
Those things all come into play, and that's what we advocate for. And a lot of times the truth isn't told about what our organization. They talk about one part of it, but they don't talk about the overall what we do and how important we are to the community. So to answer your question, 30s, I'm pretty sure that we're going to. Unfortunately, we're probably going to face the same things we
Hmm.
face. Because it just appears right now, sitting here, that history has. We're here. We're right back to where we started.
Well, and you say it being the human species, and we tend to kind of light fires or I guess create negative situations for ourselves consciously or unconsciously. So the protective services, whatever the name of the protective services might be 30 years from now, there's going to be a need for people to kind of create harmony and to protect us. Often, I mean, let's put the be very plain sometimes to protect us from ourselves. So yeah, absolutely, I agree. As we kind of conclude, gentlemen, let's elaborate a little bit more on the mission and purpose of the International Association of Professional Black Firefighters. I really love kind of articulating that phrase because, again, the international aspect, the professional aspect is so key. Black firefighters, I don't think people kind of hear that word enough, so I guess I've been repeating it intentionally, Gary and Addington. But as we conclude, kind of any following thoughts on the mission, the purpose, the nuance, the desire of the association, and Addington as by the way, how long is your term as president?
Well, I'm just finishing my first term, and I am starting my second term in August.
So you're throwing your hat in for re-election?
In the election coming up in August, so I'll be doing 2 more years.
Are you politicking? I mean, or do you have any opposition, or is it going to be a slam dunk?
Well, it's a slam dunk.
Amen. Amen.
Nobody ran against me, so I get to fight this fight for another 2 years.
Amen. And we're here to help you, and hopefully this radio show will help with the information. So, Addington, in terms of mission and purpose and desire and future kind of thoughts you have as current president and president-elect of the association.
Well, our mission statement simply states we're to create a liaison between our brothers and sisters of color globally, not just in the fire service. That's you with your support and anybody else that's open to supporting a just cause. We're to collect and evaluate data on all deleterious conditions that impact any and all areas where injustice exists in the fire service, in our communities, and we shall implement action to correct them. That's our mission statement.
I got to ask you to read that again, man. That's profound. I mean, I thought I had done my due diligence, Gary, but I clearly have not. Addington, indulge me if you wouldn't just read that. That's profound. Read that again for me.
Our mission statement states that we are to create a liaison between our brothers and sisters of color globally in or out of the fire service. I added that. To collect and evaluate data on all deleterious conditions impacting all areas where injustices exist in the fire service and our communities, and finally implement action to correct it.
That's key. That's so key, Gary. I'm really glad that we had a chance to chat. Gary, any thoughts in that regard?
I mean, that's the charge. That's our charge, and that's what we do. And just saying that, one thing I did want to mention is that you have these different organizations, and it appears that some folks are just afraid to tap into, like you said, black. And nothing's wrong with that, and some folks unfortunately take that and make it a bad thing. You have the Irish organizations, you got the Italian, all in the fire service, the Emerald Society, you got all these different organizations, but the one that stands firm on fighting for our communities are the ones that are labeled as the the so-called back. We're not that. We're the good guy. Not saying that those folks are the bad folks. We're the good ones that are just trying to level the playing field and make our communities safer, and trying to implement programs that help our youth, because it affects generations of our folks.
Absolutely.
And that's all we are. We're not against one certain group of people. Diversity, inclusion.
Yes.
That goes across the board, and we've been well trained on that. And we're passionate about it. So really look at what we're doing in our communities and be a part of it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Addington, I'm going to give you the last word. You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show, and again, we had the pleasure of chatting with Gary Tenney and Addington Stewart, part of the leadership for the International Association of Professional Black Firefighters, and their upcoming convention is next month, August. Go to their website, go to the Facebook page, International Association of Professional Black Firefighters. Addington, would you like to kind of share the last word and take us out?
Yes, sir. And Tom, again, thanks for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you through your listeners and to just give a little information about the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters. I am going to be optimistic. I think in 30 years we are going to change something with the help of our young people, because they're technically there, they're intellectually there. It's just to get that fight to come out of them. To say, hey, we are going to make these changes, and I think they're prepared to do it. And if we don't continue to reach out to them and let them tell us how they want to do things, I think until then we stay. We got a generation gap if we don't. And so my goal is to really just listen to them, take their ideas, technological and otherwise, and start developing strategies to address this 30-year look of what the IABPFF could be and what the fire service could be.
And as you mentioned,
I think they're ready. I think some are waiting on others, and generally leaders will emerge, and I'm confident that they will emerge in the IABPFF.
Amen. Amen
that's
to that.
what I'd like to leave us with, and let them know that this is their time.
Yes.
And as controversial as some things may be, it's up to them to individually take that first step and say, this is how I'm going to challenge this. And then let's start developing plans. And that's where I think some of us elders can come in and support them in that. But I think that's the key to us organizationally, is our young people actually stepping up, taking the lead, and making those changes that we're looking for.
Excellent. Addington, thank you so much. Gary, thank you so much. Addington, I'll see you next month in August, and get so pleased, everyone that's listened to this edition of the Tom Ficklin radio show. And Brian, thank you as well. I always like to give a shout out to Paul Bass and the New Haven Independent for kind of having the foresight to establish this radio station. It's W103.5 FM. It's a low power station, but because of the internet and the Facebook and the iTunes, you can listen to us globally. And Addington, you can keep the fire burning for justice. Gary, I know you will. And everybody, take care, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Thank you.
Addington, take care, man.
Coloca